Welcome to the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast with your host, Brandon Seigel. I'm a published author, speaker, entrepreneur, and private practice strategist dedicated to transforming the way that healthcare functions. This podcast is all about empowering you to create the change you want to see. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Private Practice Survival Guide. In this episode, we're talking about how to determine your ideal marketing budget. Now, I know a lot of you have this question. I know that this is something that comes up a lot. And, I think it's always a struggle because in every different industry, coming up with a marketing budget is so much easier because it's like, look, the opportunity is huge, this or that. And even when I look at coming up with a marketing budget for medical billing is easier than coming up with a marketing budget for a physician's practice. And I recognize that part of that is the margin in which we operate. Part of it is supply and demand, how much we can take within that private practice, et cetera. And so there's all these things that we look at. And one of the areas where I see a lot of private practices failing is that they're wasting marketing budget. So in order to determine your ideal marketing budget, you actually have to figure out your ROI. But this is where a lot of private practice owners make mistakes. They're measuring ROI based on gross revenue minus the expense of that marketing action. And that's actually not correct in our field. We actually have to take the net value of every client we get from that marketing action. And so I'm going to talk in this episode about how to come up with that and everything. But on a high level, I just want to take it on a high level to start, because once we start crunching numbers, I don't want you to lose sight. So on a high level, what I'm asking you to do is I'm asking you to say, hey, I'm going to invest $5,000 this month, and I'm going to test it out. Because again, we can name 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. It's actually not about how much we're spending. It's about what the net return on investment will be. I'm going to say that again. What is the net return on investment? And the reason why coming up with a marketing budget is tough is because our lifetime value of a patient is often so low. So if we go to any other industry, and we'll say it this way, let's pick on a restaurant. And we're going to pick on, for the sake of my preference, we're going to pick on Culver's. And if you haven't been to Culver's, you got to go to Culver's. I am a fan of Culver's, Midwest through and through, but now it's in the South and I love it. But Culver's says that the average client, and I'm just making this up, they come for 50 meals a year and they average 5 years of retention of a client that comes. And that's 250 meals. And let's say all of a sudden they're like, each meal is a net value of $10. Do the math. Well, right off the bat, we know we can spend a lot of money because the client acquisition value of what that lifetime value of client is so big that we can do it. But now let's talk, like, just as an example. Let's say that you have a 20% net margin on your services. And let's say that the average lifetime value of a client, we're going to say 100 appointments. I'm just coming up with that. And that might be more, that might be less, but 100 appointments. And let's say that you end up saying that the average lifetime value because of margin is only $10,000. So that's 10,000 net. I want to be clear. So at 10,000 net, we have to recognize that if we're spending $5,000 a month and we only get one client, then we only have $5,000 net profit on that client after all 100 visits. And you have to recognize, is that worth it? And those are the things that we're going to talk about today is how do we determine that? How do we look at that? And the reason why we look at net value versus gross revenue is this. There are so many costs that sometimes if I just look at my gross revenue, I could be spending more for a client than the value of what's left over. Because again, we're only getting 15, 20, 25% max revenue on a client. There are practices I know that only get 10 appointments lifetime value of a client, and they average less than $1,000 lifetime value of a client. So imagine this, $1,000 net lifetime value. Imagine if your client acquisition cost was $2,000 and you only had $1,000 net value. Like, you're going to run into issues, right? So we need to look at all of these things. And when we're looking at lifetime value, this is also what I want you to look at. I want you to look at every service that they're going to have as a lifetime, but look at who else may come in as a result. And so we blend that together to come up with what I call lifetime value proposition. And that lifetime value proposition is I average 100 appointments per patient, and in addition, we get another 50 appointments, let's say, between siblings, family, whatever. So then we come up with what that net lifetime value is. And then it's easy to say, hey, here's the deal. And one of the problems that I'm seeing in marketing is, first and foremost, I mean no disrespect. See, I'm saying it right here. I mean no disrespect. But 90% of marketing companies are garbage out there. They're garbage. You don't know if they're outsourcing it. You don't know where it's coming from. And all they're doing is promising you digital marketing impressions. They don't actually know marketing. They're just offshoring it. And they're like, we're going to get you a bunch of impressions. So like, oh my gosh, your ad is running well. And we've been in front of 10,000 people and you had, 50 clicks. And then when you don't have any conversions, they come to you and they say, hey, you know what? We did our job. We got people in front of your ad. The problem is your ad, or the problem is your call to action, or the problem is your website, or the problem is this. And all of a sudden you put $100,000 into it and you have nothing to show because you're not predefining what metrics you need from them. And they don't always understand your business. And so in some cases, I would tell you that search marketing optimization is not where you're going to get the best value, the best ROI for our business. So you listen to a friend and the friend has a restaurant and the friend says, oh my gosh, I am crushing it on SMO, search marketing optimization. We're putting ads on Google and Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and all this stuff. And all of a sudden they're like, we're raking it in. And you're like, yeah, but they're doing it and it's working. They're doing it, but their business model is different. Who they're coming after is different, etc. Now, again, you need to look beyond clicks. You need to look beyond impressions. When we're looking at this, basically what I say is I have a pre-qualifying expectation. If I can get all of the following, I know I can close it. And I recently gave a challenge to a marketing company. I used to do the search marketing, all of that stuff. And now I really find that, honestly, it's not my wheelhouse. There are plenty of people that are good at it. There are a lot of people that are not. I don't need to do that because it's a hard game. It's not an easy algorithm that's always changing. But I recently had a company that came to me and said, I want your referral. And I said, okay, I'm going to give you $5,000 per client acquisition budget. $5,000 for every client. I am giving you a $5,000 budget. That means you can spend $5,000 in ads. And as long as I close one client in this category, I'm golden. And I gave them 90 days and they couldn't deliver. And they couldn't deliver because they didn't understand the industry. And they thought they did, but they didn't. And they wasted a lot of money, a lot. They didn't just waste my money, but they wasted any referral because they didn't know what they didn't know. So when you're determining your ideal marketing budget, recognize that you need to make sure you have people that know what they know and know what they don't know. There is a difference between doing marketing for a product, a service, a household service, a medical service, an ongoing service versus a one-time service, an insurance service versus a cash service. B2B versus B2C, business to business versus business to consumer. These are all things that you need to think about, because once we determine our ideal marketing budget, don't forget, we got to figure out where we want to spend it. Because imagine if I said to you, I can 10x your business for $100,000 while maintaining your net profit. You'd be like, sign me up. So that's why I always come up with my value of what a client is worth, and then I let the marketing company figure out how to get there, provided they understand the market. When I told them I had a $5,000 client acquisition budget, they thought they were swimming in paradise. They didn't recognize how hard it was. And the reason why it was hard was because I look for a unicorn when I look for a client. I'm not the guy that wants to take it all. I want to handpick my clients, because if I handpick my clients, then I know I am consistent with my results. I am also able to create the best relationship because I know I'll do right by them. A bad client is honestly a toxicity waiting to happen. The reason why my clients are fits is, one, I always am willing to take the risk that they can break up with me. But the other is, I am handpicking them at the same time that they're handpicking me. And so with that marketing budget, the mistake they made was they didn't recognize that I wasn't just looking for leads, and they just thought any doctor and any practice would do. Nope. I said exact revenue, exact EMR, exact everything I wanted dialed in for this campaign. And I said, now is your time to say if you don't know you can do it. And they're like, oh my gosh, we can do this. This is easy, blah, blah, blah. 2 weeks go in, no results. Maybe it's a little harder. 2 weeks go by. Then they're like, oh, we told you this was hard. I'm like, no, you didn't. And I say it to you because make sure you are dealing with companies that underpromise and overdeliver, that they know what they don't know. Hey, this is a risk, etc. So as I shared with you, I defined what that marketing budget was, what the value of client acquisition expense was for that client and that service in that circumstance. You need to do the same. Is it $100? Is it $500? Is it $5,000? Is it $10,000? What is the value of an acquisition client? And that is formulated based on coming up with the client's lifetime net value and figuring out what that's worth. So for me, typically, I want my client acquisition cost to be somewhere between 5 to 20% of a client's lifetime net value, depending on the business model. 5 to 20%. Now, we work in small margins, and that's why I got to do it up to 20% sometimes. It's just what it is. So you got to recognize. So I say, hey, and I say this all the time when I recruit, is like, you give me a unicorn, I'll give you $10,000. You give me a new client, I'll give you $5,000. Like, I come up with that acquisition cost where it's flat rate because I know what that lifetime value is. And I know that I'm going to have 80% of that left over, or 90% or 95%, depending on the circumstance. And so that's part of our cost. So when we're defining our client's lifetime net value, first step, identify your average gross revenue and your net profit per service offering. So we average $100 per evaluation or whatever. And then you want to identify the lifetime average quantity of service offering per client. So we average a net value of $1 per appointment. We average 1,000 appointments. We're getting $1,000 of net value for that client, just as a simple math. $1, 1,000 appointments. And again, it might be $1,000 appointment that you make $1. You get $1 times 1,000 appointments and you're getting $1,000. You do the math, but identify the value when calculating the average net profit multiplied by averaging your quantity of service offering. And sometimes when I'm doing service offering, I'm looking at I'm looking at lifetime of what their appointments are. I'm averaging out that net value. And sometimes I'll say the average person brings in, we have 1.25 people because someone from the family will sometimes join in. So sometimes what we'll say is, the lifetime value is 100 appointments, but they bring in another person. So we're going to give that 1.25. So we're going to say 125 appointments is the lifetime value times $1. You get the point. Some other examples. ABC Medical averages 18% net profit per patient. They average an appointment value of $180. So that means that they have a $32.40 net profit. If they have a lifetime value of 51 appointments per patient, then we've got a lifetime net value, the lifetime net value of $1,652.40. That's $32.40 times 51 appointments. Again, all we're doing is we're calculating average net value for all the services. And sometimes that includes a spouse and average, whatever, 1.25 of that lifetime value times the value net of that service so that we can come up with a net lifetime value. The next thing we need to do is we need to determine what our client acquisition cost is going to be or what our client acquisition budget is. Meaning kind of like just that general idea of like, hey, if the lifetime net value is $1,652.40, maybe I'm saying I've got a $250 client acquisition expense. Maybe that's the component. But maybe we go and we actually track this in past marketing to see what we're doing. So we identify how much money you spend in marketing expenses, labor, advertisements, software, etc. You identify how many direct clients you treated as a result of that marketing expense, and then you calculate the expense divided by the patient conversion. So ABC Medical spends $1,500 per month on Google. And let's just say, because we get 1,000 impressions, that doesn't mean anything. 25 leads, that doesn't mean anything. 5 clients, that means something. The client acquisition cost would be $1,500 divided by 5, so we would have a $300 acquisition cost. And when we calculate the lifetime value minus that marketing acquisition cost of $300, that means that after we finish everything, we're going to have $1,352.40 left over for that lifetime benefit of that client. These are the type of things that we want to play with, looking at the way that we spend our money, the value of our money, the way that we invest. And so the more margin you have, the more you're going to invest. Now, my statement to you is this. Let me throw you a curveball. Let's say that you say, Brandon, I want to pivot away from insurance and I'm going to create another tax ID. It's going to be a private pay. And now you name your price and you're like, I'm going to budget so that I have a 35% acquisition cost, and maybe you add 35% to your pricing to budget that in so that you're adding marketing budget through increasing your cash pay prices. And I think that's really important. Something that I have found in my own experience, and every marketing company might tell you something different. So take this with a grain of salt. But those that are doing Google ads by themselves, it's rare that I see an ROI, just being honest. You need a professional to do it. And I have found that if you're not spending at least $1,500 a month in ad spend, in our industry, it's really hard to get any traction. So these companies that charge you $750 and give you $750 of ad spend, I would be shocked if you're getting the ROI on a $750 ad spend. Even though you're like, well, I'm spending $1,500 a month. No, I'm talking $1,500 of ad spend. These are the things you need to look at. And for $1,500 of ad spend, I believe that you should be able to get at least 3 new clients a month. I typically would average 3 to 5 new clients a month for $1,500 of ad spend. Now, this depends on location, service, all those different things, but that's just food for thought for you. So if all of a sudden I look at that and I say, hey, this is what my client acquisition cost would be based on 3, I compare that to the lifetime value and I say, is this worth it? And there's a risk. You're going to have months where, and that's the other thing you need a budget for. You need a budget that, in my opinion, my reality, it takes 90 days to see the reality of a marketing campaign, 90 days to get it in gear. For the first 90 days, you're just test running, you're A/B testing, you're checking it, you're all those things. And so that's on a digital marketing standpoint. There's different ways to market. I want to be crystal clear. So very transparently, I think that I've found relationship building has been my best marketing. So I have not found having the social media presence has been my thing. I'm not the Instagram guy. There are plenty of people that do it. You have to find your wheelhouse. What works for someone might not work for you. For me, I think it's a combination of live events, speaking, podcast, getting out there and communicating my voice has been where I invest my marketing budget. And then I think it also taps into my sphere of excellence. So you got to figure out what that is for you. And different people are different. You know, a lot of people are doing Google ads for courses and stuff like that. Whether they're driving the ROI, that's to be determined, you know, and that's where you got to look at it. So you have to evaluate all of your optimal marketing outlets and what that ROI is. When I started with my mother-in-law's private practice, it really became this vision for, let's get grassroots. Let's invest in the time that I spend in marketing versus the ad spend and whatnot. And it was a different time. I want to be clear. But I used to go once a month and I would spend a week knocking on doors. And so our number one referral source was actually other physicians. So we were B2B was our referral approach. I have another client that I worked with, and we actually did an incredible direct mailing to homeowners. We were able to target the demographics. We were able to build a call to action with a clear offering, and we killed it. We got, you know, typically you'll see 1 to 3% in direct mail. I think we were at like a 17% conversion rate in terms of like from postcard to person. Now we ran it 3 times, but I think that that's something that you got to look at is like, what's your methodology? Who's your ideal client? And we're going to have other episodes on that. But what I found was that digital marketing, sometimes you outprice yourself based on competition. So it's kind of like if everyone's doing that same vehicle, there's a point where you're going to reach a tipping point where it no longer financially pencils for you. And that's why it's so important for you to understand what works does not mean it's affordable. So any marketing action that's around is successful in some capacity, in my opinion, but at what cost and at what specialty and in what way is it working, et cetera. And so I think it's really critical that you're looking at that you're building into your profit and loss. And so a lot of you, the other thing is you say, well, Brandon, I don't need a marketing budget. I say, I bet you're wrong. Let's do it. And I say, tell me why don't you need a marketing budget? I've got a wait list. We're going to talk about this wait list because 95% of you don't have a wait list. You have a lead list. A lead list is different than a wait list. A lead list is someone who says, put me on your list and I'm interested. A wait list is they're willing to mortgage their house to get into your schedule. They'll put down money. They'll do whatever. They've filled out their paperwork and they're literally running to the door. A wait list is 100% conversion. A lead list is an interest list in my reality. So I come back to this idea of you're like, Brandon, we take insurance. I go, right there, you're spending marketing. What if I told you that I could get double your insurance reimbursement right now, but you have to spend $25,000 a year in marketing? You do it. The reason why you're not spending marketing money is because you're spending it through the reduction of reimbursement with healthcare insurance. You got to pick your poison. Pick your budget, pick your way of doing it, and what do you expect for it? And so everything from a simplistic standpoint comes down to what is my client acquisition budget? What is my client net reward return on investment as a result? Break it down to stupid simple. Bring the problem to a marketing company. Now, if you go to a marketing company, you're like, look, I've got a net value of this. I have an acquisition value of this, and I need to ensure within a reasonable doubt that within 6 months, we can perform with the following ROI. And they say, no one can tell you that. I disagree. I disagree. That means that you are treading in water that is unknown. So they don't know how much they're going to get. They can't tell you they're going to get 25 clients every month, but they're going to be able to build an algorithm to say, we've studied the market. We've studied the keywords. We've studied the list of people. We've studied the market competition. We've been able to artificially examine the opportunity. And this is where it rests. We are confident. So I'm not asking for a guarantee. I'm asking for confidence. Confident is, if you're not, I'm willing to at least bet my shoes that you get it there. That's not confident. If you tell me that you won't take the shirt off your back if I'm wrong, that's not confident. My belief is this: a marketing company that really wants to co-create with you is willing to invest with you, to say, give me 6 months to put together a proof of concept. Let's call it an evaluation. That's going to be a fixed expense that you're not going to expect any ROI. Let us do market research. Let us put the money in place and let us see if there's a solution. Well, that's an expense in terms of discovery, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, whatever. But once we go into this next gear of ongoing, I want them to be able to tell you that they are confident. They will take the shoes off their feet. They will take the shirt off their back to make sure that we are within this range to that range on a consistent basis. Them losing your business is not enough because there's more clients. They need to really feel engaged in that. And so as we show them their budget, and it's funny because they don't recognize the net profit percentage of your business. So the first thing I want you to do when you're talking to a marketing company is I want you to help them find 5 similar practices that they've done what they've done for you. Are you a new market? And them just saying we work in healthcare, it's not the same. I want to be crystal clear. And health tech and working for a neurosurgeon is different than working for a dentist's office. There's a reason why there's marketing companies that just do dentists, that just do chiros, because each one is its own marketing algorithm. Just because they're successful in Nebraska doesn't mean they'll be successful in Los Angeles. So you need to make sure that they're willing to underpromise and overdeliver, that they recognize where they're strong, where they're weak, that they understand that, hey, we're working with a low margin. If you don't have over $1,000 lifetime net value, you have to recognize there's only so much marketing good. But here's the other thing. What if you drop $25,000 to get leads and you don't have enough space to take them on as clients? So you have to make sure that when you're marketing, you have enough upside and opportunity. So I always say I have to have, like, the idea that I'm just going to start marketing for 3 months and be done, I disagree with. I believe marketing is an ecosystem. Whatever you do, you have to be consistent and do it a lot. And a lot of you say, well, I don't know how to track what the value is. I'm like, it's this simple. Every patient has an origination place. Where did they come from? I came from the web. I came from Google. I came from Facebook. I came from this. But here's the other thing. Every marketing action should have a unique call to action. And that is our tracker. What if I sent out and said, I'll give you $1,000 off our care delivery? And then from there, I see how many people actually book and schedule and whatever. That $1,000 is coming out of that marketing budget, but that's what's helping me with my call to action so that I can track that client to that $1,000 versus just, well, we put up ads and we just say, hey, we're here and we're great and wonderful. Having the budget is step 1. Making the marketing effective is step 2. And optimizing your outlet and return on investment is step 3. So as you prepare to determine your budget, I want you to define your client's lifetime net value. I want you to determine your acquisition cost. I want you to evaluate optimal marketing outlets and return on investment. Did you know businesses that allocate at least 5% of their revenue to marketing see on average a 20% increase in revenue growth? Gartner. But guess what? That's 20% of top line revenue. So you got to make sure what that 5% looks like in ratio to your net revenue. In the words of Beth Comstock, marketing's job is never done. It's about perpetual motion. We must continue to innovate every day. I so believe that. I say this with you because when I look at that, you're looking for a transaction one-off. I need this, get it to me now. Everything's about a rhythm. Marketing's about a rhythm. Hiring's about a rhythm. Clinical delivery is about a rhythm. Productivity is a rhythm. How are you developing a budget to create ongoing rhythmic activities to grow your private practice? Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast about how to determine your ideal marketing budget. I hope that you enjoyed our episode. It would mean the world to me if you would like us, subscribe, and share us with the world, because together we can thrive, not just survive. Thank you for tuning in to the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast. I'm incredibly grateful to each and every one of you. Exciting news. We're now available everywhere, from Spotify to Apple Podcasts to YouTube or anywhere you like to listen to your podcasts. So watch, listen, and reach out. If you loved this episode, please drop a 5-star review. It truly means the world to me. Are you looking for more ways to elevate your practice? If so, now is your chance. Reach out, go to my website, or email me at brandon@wellnessworksmp.com. And remember, it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving.